So I turned 45 this year, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something very special for my birthday, and I did not decide what to do until the morning of my birthday. But I know I wanted to have it be a very special gift to me, and one that was of great value. So on the morning of my birthday, and my birthday's in May, so I'm 3 months past my 45th birthday. I decided to give myself a real gift, and my gift to myself was to stop eating sugar. Now, to some of you, this does not sound like a gift at all, but just the opposite. But let's just say at 45, I'm halfway through my life. Like I'm going to live to 90. I of course think everyone thinks they're going to live to, 100 or whatever. But let's just say I live to 90. So it's like I want my second half of my life to be as great as it can. And so how do you do that? And the answer that came back to me is cut sugar. Cut all sugar. Cut all sugar from your life. Now, I can still have fruit, so I guess you could say that's, sugar from fruit, but no honey, no syrup, maple syrup, certainly no refined sugar, no chemical syrup, no sugar in my body. And the idea was there is zero upside to having sugar in your body. Your body doesn't want sugar. It doesn't need sugar. There's not a side benefit to it. And so I stopped putting sugar in my body. And I have to say, it was very difficult at the beginning. But it's like, what type of commitment are you going to make to yourself to have this be your best life? And I just realized, if I want this to be my best life, then I want to treat my body as well as I can, as good as I can, whichever is the right way to say it. And so I'm doing that. I'm past 100 days. I was never overweight, but so far I have lost, let's see, how much have I have to do it in my head? 12 pounds in 100 days. And look, if you would have seen me on day one, you would not have thought, I was not, fighting shape. But to make yourself the best you can, what are you willing to do? And I find that most people aren't actually willing to do the steps. Hey, everybody, this is RC Peck, and this is my weekend podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And the theme for this weekend is really the container that everything sits in. So one of our main containers in life is our physical body. Another one of our main containers is our mind. And so what are you doing to have the best container for these parts of your life? Now, life comes in three parts. You have your health, your wealth, and your relationships, which I call yourself. So in the world of money and growing your money, what is that container? Where does that money get held? Now, before we get into that, I want to let you know that I did add coffee to my life. I have never had coffee. I think I had one sip in my entire life before, maybe 2 months ago. I just didn't see a reason to have it. But when I gave up sugar, I searched for something that had positive net effects to the body. And so every morning now I drink a half a cup of coffee, which I make in a French press. What is the container, though, for your finances? Now, the answer may surprise a lot of people, certainly outside of this podcast, but the answer is your behaviors. The behaviors that you set your investments in. That's what they sit on, right? Your investments sit in this container called how you behave. And everything you do affects everything inside that container. So yesterday was a pretty exciting day in the stock market. I almost said on the stock market. The market fell about 2.5%. And so I just want to point out and talk about this one market, this one index, the S&P 500, which is what is on the screen right now. And it won't appear to you like three different price charts, but I'm going to show you this same price chart with three different red lines on it. And here's the first red line, which you can see on the screen. And look, the market, if it hits, okay, if it drops, collapses all the way down to 2100, and I said market, but I mean S&P 500 when I say market. If the S&P falls to 2100, which it's not at 2100, close of day was at about 2130, so it could drop another 30 points. But let's say it does drop to 2100. that will be a total stock market drop of 4.3%. And it'll put it at the bottom range of that rose color thick horizontal line. And until it gets there, and I'm not saying it will get there, but until it gets there, almost no attention needs to be paid to the stock market. In fact, I don't think any attention needs to be paid to the stock market. But there is a range, so it could get to 2015, 2010, 2120. Sorry, I meant 2115, 2110. All right, now the second line is really if it breaks that 2100. And I'm giving this to you because I want to give you points of interest or points where you may want to start paying attention, but not critical attention. So until the S&P breaks and closes below 2100, you do not need to pay attention to it. Now, there are things you could be paying attention to. One of the things I pay attention to is which sectors are falling less than the market right now? Which locations around the world are falling less? Is emerging market falling faster or slower than the S&P? Is China falling faster or slower? Because this matters. This relative strength matters. And that's something I talk about from time to time. But until the S&P closes below 2100, and even if it does, you don't really need to worry about anything, or any of that worrying you are doing is really a waste of time. So the last point is if the S&P breaks below, let's call it 1860. Now, from peak to where the market was about a month ago, if it breaks down below the channel that the market has broken out of, it did break out of it back in July. Okay. Now, if it comes back into the channel, that will be called the false breakout. What happened in July? It broke out in July, stayed out in July, stayed out in August, and moved back into September, moved back into the channel in September. If that happens, we'll call that a false breakout. But so that is one thing that you may want to be aware of. Okay. But it doesn't really become a critical concern until the S&P breaks below the third line on this price chart, which is at about 1840. Now, even if it did go down to that and close below that, that would still only be a 15% correction in the S&P. And a 15% correction is not the end of the world. Truly, until the market corrects 20%, you don't really need to pay a significant amount of attention to the market. So this is where we are today. We can't change it. Yes, I know what's going on with central banks and money printing and debt and people's debt and the price to earnings ratio and interest rates in this country and around the world. I know all that, but you know what? The market knows that too. And the hundreds of millions of people that have their money in the market know that too. So the best mechanism that we have right now is to look at the price chart and just notice what it's doing. And right now, though that looks scary on the screen for the market to fall, until it breaks really the 2100 and closes below that. Not that if it does, it's the third time I'm saying this, should you be concerned, but you shouldn't even pay attention until it breaks below the 2100. And then if it does, we could spend another year in the channel that we just broke out of 2 months ago. And really, you should only really get concerned if it breaks below that let's call it 1860. So what are the takeaways, or what is the main takeaway? So the first of all, if yesterday's market drop really scared you, like made a sick gut feeling, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Is this the big one? Is the big one coming? Remember Sanford and Son? If you guys remember that from the 80s, Red Fox played a character who was always thinking he was having a heart attack. Is this the big one? The big one's coming. If Friday's fall of 2.5% scared you, then first of all, your strategy is broken. Whatever strategy you're following, and if Friday's correction, fall, whatever you want to call it, scared you, then whatever strategy you're following, it is a broken strategy. It is a strategy that is going to make you poorer over time. Also, too, if yesterday really did concern you, you're watching way too much news. You're watching and looking at your positions way too much. The proper way to run your money in the market is to have a systematized system with a checklist. And then third, if yesterday really bothered you, this is actually hurting your life. It is hurting your life because it's hurting the security, it's hurting your future, it's hurting your portfolio. It's creating more stress in your body. And those are all net negatives to you. Please get a checklist for my strategies in market probability, LTech, and OT obvious trend. They all have checklists. For all my members, I have just updated the market probability checklist, which is on the membership site, and I just updated the LTech checklist, which I update from time to time. So if you go into the portfolio section, you will see a link to both updated checklists. And checklists are super, super key to getting the things that you want in life. Hey guys, this is just another step in helping you protect your portfolio and your future. Until next time, this is RC Peck.